you noticed the progression of my lighting, my camera position, and the background? Okay, my first video had a Chipper Jones poster in it. I think it's getting better. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Star Wars Closet. I cannot wait to jump into this video, but before we do, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the like button. I don't understand that, actually. Don't hit the like button until the video is over, because you might not like it. What kind of call to action is that? A lot of people do that. If you don't like it, don't like it. Look at me being different, huh? But no other YouTuber has ever said that. I'm super pumped about this channel. We've grown a little bit, grown on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, a little bit. If you don't follow me there yet, go to @the_SW_Closet. Love interacting with all of you as much as I can. But obviously I want you to stick around here. So make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the video, make sure you like it. If you don't like it, dislike it. Either way, help the channel grow. And without further ado, let's jump into this video. So in this one, I want to talk about something a little controversial. This one isn't really controversial. I feel like it shouldn't be anyways, but I know that it will be. And there's really one reason why. We get really intense about our era of Star Wars. If you came up in the olden days when Star Wars was first coming out and you had things like A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, like those are yours. And we have a lot of people, millennials that are like my age, that still claim those as theirs, even if they weren't really around when they were coming out. And that's okay, but most of us that are my age, we claim the prequels. And a lot of us, we get real defensive about that era of Star Wars, and I think rightfully so. There's a lot to love about it. There's a lot to criticize about it.
I don't like sand.
I'm still old enough and young enough to remember when a lot of people did not like them when they first came out.
They haven't liked any of them, really. Say, oh, all this digital stuff, doesn't that make everything phony? Doesn't that make it, it's not true, it's not real? I said, movies aren't true.
Now, I think in a lot of ways, the prequels have aged like a fine wine, and in some ways they haven't.
In time, you will learn to trust your feelings.
But I definitely think the appreciation for that era has grown tremendously.
I love you guys too. Making me emotional.
And that's kind of my argument for what I think could happen to the sequels years down the road. Something we may not see is that kids today that are watching those movies, I think will look back fondly on those movies, and we will be the ones very defensive like we are now. And that's my over analytical interpretation of how we see the eras of Star Wars. And that's not really what this video is about, but it kind of is. I want to talk about the evolution of lightsaber fighting. Lightsaber battles across the Star Wars saga have shifted in choreography and style between the prequels and the sequels and so on. This is tied to both filmmaking choices and in-universe logic. So let's go ahead and break this down a little bit. What has changed and why has it changed? A lot of people really hate on the modern fighting when you have Rey versus Kylo Ren, all the slow movements. I've seen meme after meme, video after video. My argument is that there was no other way to do it. And again, if you've watched my last couple of videos, you probably know I'm not the biggest sequels fan. I hate the fact that there wasn't a full story written out ahead of time. I hate the direction they took 90% of the characters. And really the only character I like in the sequels is Kylo Ren. But I am making, for all you sequels fans, I am making an argument about your sequels. My sequels are sequels. We're Star Wars fans, they're our sequels. If we claim them or not, they are a part of the canon, they are a part of Star Wars, so let's talk about it. But before we can talk about what took place in the sequels, we have to go all the way back to the prequels. If I keep saying quills a lot, I'm gonna start spitting, and I don't want to do that. In the prequels, episodes 1 through 3, the lightsaber fights, like in The Phantom Menace with Darth Maul or Revenge of the Sith with Anakin versus Obi-Wan, they are flashy, they're acrobatic, and they're fast-paced. It's like dancing. It's almost like a ballet with all the flips and the movements, the spins, and the precise strikes. This makes sense narratively, and that is my argument for all of the eras. If it makes sense narratively for the movies, not just who was the choreographer for those fights. I am a massive fan of Nick Gillard, and I've become more of a fan when I've seen him on YouTube now. He's been on Star Wars Theory's YouTube channel talking about his choreography. I would have loved, just as a Star Wars fan, for him to be the choreographer for all of Star Wars. He should be the John Williams of choreography. I want to see more fights just like that. But what makes sense for the narrative of the era? Again, in the prequels, it's very fast-paced. The Jedi are at the height of their power, and they're trained from childhood in a structured order with refined forms, just like the 7 lightsaber combat forms. If you didn't know, there are 7 lightsaber combat forms, and I just mentioned them, but Star Wars Theory does a great video on this. It's from like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, where he breaks it all down. The Jedi mastered the majority of them. Again, all the forms, that's its own video. If you want to see a good one on it, you can go to Theories. But at the height of their power, they were studying these forms constantly. Obi-Wan and Anakin, they had all these forms that they mastered. Yoda, they were at the height of their power, and this is all they did. They studied the Force, and they practiced with lightsabers, and they went to war. The Sith, too, are meticulous, and they're aggressive. They match the energy of the Jedi, if not surpassing the energy of the Jedi, and more often than not, they surpass the energy of the Jedi.
Sith Lords are our speciality.
The choreography reflects a galaxy where lightsaber duels are an art form, practiced by masters. Now, if you want to go into just the movie making, George Lucas was all about using CGI and younger actors like Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen who could handle the physicality of this lightsaber style of fighting. It's just like watching a dance because it's meant to dazzle and show peak Jedi prowess.
It takes a long time to learn the choreography because they're essentially like dances, and because you're actually whacking away at each other, you have to be in the right place at the right time or you get hurt.
Now, you contrast that with the sequels. Again, prequels, Jedi, height of their power. They are in a war, and you have hundreds and hundreds of Jedis constantly training masters and apprentices everywhere. This is an established thing that you don't have in the sequels. Episodes 7 through 9, where fights like Kylo Ren versus Rey in The Force Awakens or in the throne room battle in The Last Jedi, they feel heavier, slower, they're brutal. The movements are broad, the strikes more deliberate. Almost, and I've said this before, it's almost very Game of Thrones, very medieval. This shift fits the story. The Jedi Order is gone, and it has been for a long time, and any sort of Jedi training or lightsaber combat training is very fragmented. And the thing I like about the sequels is that the characters of Rey and Kylo Ren, they're very raw, emotional, they're self-taught in a lot of ways. Kylo's cross-guard saber, Rey's staff-inspired moves, these suggest improvisation over tradition, and that's the difference. In the prequels, you have a lot of traditional teaching. This is what we do. Form 6 is like the prototypical form to master for Jedis. It takes something like 10 years, but that's what they're taught, and it goes on and on, generation after generation after generation. That's all lost now. It's all fragmented, it's all broken, and it's been years and years, decades and decades since any of that had ever taken place. And the one time that they tried it, again, I don't like it. When Luke tried it, it didn't go well.
He had vanished with a handful of my students and slaughtered the rest.
And now you have this situation with him and Ben Solo becoming Kylo Ren. So we couldn't even get there, and Luke's training was going to be something that was a little fragmented anyway because he was barely trained in lightsaber combat. So again, that's inside the galaxy of Star Wars, right? That's inside of the story. But from the outside, let's look at what J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson wanted to do. They wanted to go for a grittier, grounded vibe, inspired partly by the original trilogy's simpler duels, but dialed up with modern intensity. It's less about finesse and more about power and desperation. And I gotta give it to him, that's what you see. You see a lot of desperate just swings of the lightsaber, and they're trying it in different ways, and they're just swinging, and then they come up with this new thing where they can just stop it with the Force. That seems to be Disney's new favorite move, is as soon as the lightsaber is about to hit you, you can just put your hand out here and you can stop it before it hits you. It looks sick. It's just funny how like we've never seen that before, but now we see it all the time. Or you can get stabbed by a lightsaber and it does nothing. Poor Qui-Gon Jinn, baby. We miss you.
Took you long enough.
But my point is, you can argue that this gives the progression of the overall theme of these eras of Star Wars. The prequels show a polished, idolized era of lightsaber combat, while the sequels depict a broken, chaotic galaxy where the art has been lost. And that's it. That's the difference. We want to complain about how the lightsaber battles took place and what they look like and the choreography and all that stuff. And I don't disagree. I'm asked all the time, what's your favorite lightsaber battle? To me, it's the end with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. I have done that when I was a kid. I used to pretend I was Obi-Wan all the time and do that. I had it down all the way, lightsaber behind the back, the whole thing. I loved it. And it's hard for me in my 30s to sit here and watch the battle of Kylo Ren and Rey in the snow and think, well, that was cool. I didn't think it was cool at all. However, it fits. But now we go to the original trilogy, the OGs, right? The bridge of these two eras. The original trilogy in 4 through 6, it sits in the middle and it's slower and it's less flashy than the prequels, but it's more deliberate than the sequels because it's about older, battle-worn fighters like Vader and Obi-Wan. These are not peak athletes, not at all. And I was almost going to leave out that battle of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader from A New Hope because at the end of the day, it's just really hard to get past the fact that that was the first ever lightsaber battle that anyone has ever seen. I mean, my guy had a USB cord or a XLR cable or something powering that lightsaber right there in his sleeve. So it's hard to be like, well, here's why that fits narratively. But I will make a case for it. You have an old man in Obi-Wan who aged like blue milk sitting underneath the two suns of Tatooine on a summer's day, and you have an older Darth Vader who, in my argument, is probably just toying with Obi-Wan at this point. In Empire Strikes Back, you have a very, very, very rookie version of Luke Skywalker holding a lightsaber, battling an older Darth Vader, but Darth Vader, he could take him out in a split second and everyone knows it, but Luke is doing everything he can anyway. Darth Vader easily overpowers him as soon as he decides to. As soon as Luke actually makes Vader mad, Vader, yeah, he did it quick. And then when you get to the Return of the Jedi, that lightsaber battle I still think is awesome. But again, you can see that it's more deliberate. But it also fits narratively with where they're heading 30 years later with the sequels. Because again, it's not real flashy. It's not pretty looking. But at the end of the day, this is why I think that the lightsaber battles change. At least it's my in-universe theory. In summary, you have sequels where you have people that don't have a Jedi Order, are not trained properly, or not trained traditionally, and therefore their battles reflect that. However, in the prequels, a lot of traditional teaching and generations among generation of these styles of teaching led to that style of combat. That's why you have the speed of an Obi-Wan and an Anakin. And a lot of people like to hate on the whole Obi-Wan and Anakin spinning their lightsabers at each other for no reason. There was absolutely a reason. My reason has always been that they were both looking for a weakness. Anakin was spinning as fast as he could, looking for an opening. Obi-Wan spinning the same speed, getting ready to block him, and he does. I digress. That's not what this video is about. It's just the fact that that's why you have that speed versus the speed that we get in the sequels. So that's my theory. That's my reasons for why I think Star Wars lightsaber battles changed from era to era within universe. Obviously, there's way more reasons out of the universe, like in real life. But if we're going to be real Star Wars fans, how do we get it within the universe and how do we make it make sense? To me, that's why it makes sense. That's why the battles look the way they do. And that is what I have decided to accept. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you think the prequels are the best with the more dancey style of fighting, or do you think that the sequels had the best fighting with more of the desperate big movements? I would love to get into it with you all about what you think, but don't argue with me. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and also let me know who your favorite lightsaber user of all time is. Can be good or bad, and why is it Obi-Wan Kenobi? We'll see you all in the next one.